one of the things we're going to be doing is, did you read the text and prepare for it? And I know you all did, okay? You're engaging in your discussion. You're going to stay on task. You support your ideas and references from where? From the text. What?
The text.
The text is the King of Maisie May. And what incident displays Walt's quick thinking? Remember this one? Okay.
I think one time is when the on page 66, when the lead dog, when the bad lead dog gets shot, you know, he doesn't like fall into the ground sobbing in a heap.
If something bad is, his dad left him for a while, so he was like all alone, dependent on himself to go hunting and stuff. And I really think he didn't have much of a social life because he's never met a girl or anything. Can't have kids. Nothing.
I'm gonna argue that because I think that his dad leaving him was really a test. Don't think the dad was trying, but I think it just kind of ended up that Walt now he's proving himself that he can live on his own, because when he gets older, he's not gonna be relying on his 80-year-old dad all the time. He's gonna have to know how to care for himself. So I think that was like the beginning.
Also, it kind of like almost gave him a license to really talk big with the men, because it says on the first page, second column, it said, and he can go to Indian camps and talk big with the men. And it's kind of like now he has a reason to be able to do that, while before he was just kind of like, hey, I can do this.
On page 63, it says that Walt picked out the best of the dogs, and he really was thinking about the sled and how he was going to get from here to Dawson as fast as he could. So he picked out the best looking dogs and thought he found the leader. And then on the next page, it says that he knew how to mush them and he knew how to turn it and stuff. So he had really quick thinking, saying, okay, I need these dogs and we need to go now.
Oh, one thing when Megan, you were talking about his quick thinking of jumping off the sled, I don't remember where that was, but I'm not,
I think it was like on 35 or 34. 60. Yeah, sorry.
well, wherever that is. I remember how in the story how it said that it's what all of the old dog sledders did. And it might have been more like out of habit or thinking of someone else than quick thinking.
Tally and Megan were like, when Ian and Kyle hadn't spoken very much, they like helped him get into the conversation.
We're working on rockets now. We just finished with flight and the four forces of flight and how an airplane flies and everything. And so today we're moving on. We're going to be talking about space, and so we're going to start off with rockets. And they just are starting to understand Newton's laws of motion. And so we're applying those, and we're going to make balloon rockets. And we're going to start with just a balloon that represents the rocket fuel. Which is just going to be their air for this, for air pressure. This one kind of has two guiding questions. Cool. At the end of the experiment, I want them to have two things. I want them to understand how or why they design rockets the way they do, and I want them to understand how the rocket that they build can explain Newton's 3 laws of motion. So those are the two things that they're going to have to be able to do by the end of the class. This rocket is super easy. It's simple because this is the first rocket we've done. So it's just like the balloon is the fuel, and then we answer the question of, well, why do rockets look long and skinny? Why do they have fins on them? So they start simple, and then they keep on adding components to the rocket. And so then they could see, well, with just a balloon, the rocket just flies all over the place. Well, if we just had that and we didn't have the shape of the rocket, if we just had some type of contained gas that's going to move something forward, well, then you can't control it. But then you add on, like we're just going to add a stick on there, a straw, and then that'll help stabilize the rocket a little bit. And so then how that would explain, they'd have to explain Newton's laws and how they apply, or how that rocket shows Newton's laws and how how it's true. That's what their goal is for the end of the class. So we'll see how it goes. You can't really run a classroom like this without having collaboration. They have to work in partners, just because, well, for me, that's a life skill. You have to learn to work with people that you don't necessarily want to work with, and sometimes you do get to work with people that you didn't even know you'd get along with. So we do a lot of collaboration. If you ask why questions like, why is the sky blue? It's kind of like this huge kind of thing that they don't really get. They could just say because. And I don't like to ask those kind of questions either, because I don't want them to have like a simple answer. I want to ask them, well, how does, and then whatever I want them to learn. Those types of questions. And then, so they have because they do science notebooks, in their science notebooks, they have the question, and then they write some sort of hypothesis, and then we do the experiment. They record data, so we work a lot on, how do we record data and how do we represent data, and then they work on technical drawings, stuff like that. And then at the end, they have to answer that big question, and then I collect them, just read them, just to see how many people. And then I also ask them how they learned, because if they didn't, because sometimes you don't realize it, but they can't do the experiment because of maybe they don't have like the dexterity or something like that, so they're being stopped in their learning by some little tiny thing that you wouldn't know until you ask them, and they're like, well, it was really hard for me because I can't pick up the toothpicks that well when they're building bridges or something. And you're like, oh, well, it's not because they didn't learn it, it's because they are having a different type of problem. So I usually ask that at the end too.
This video presents examples of promising classroom practices in 21st century learning. We at the Council on 21st Century Learning have been engaged in lively conversations with educators across Colorado and beyond about transforming K-12 education. This video extends that conversation, moving from abstract ideas to concrete examples. It's easy to talk about the need for change, but far more difficult to actually create the change from schooling to learning. We see that change occurring, and we can learn from those who are leading the way. These examples come from the Colorado school districts of Aurora, Colorado Springs, and Denver. We refer to the practices as promising because they demonstrate progress toward 21st century learning. Like the practitioners themselves, we think they could be better still. We hope that you will find them useful as you consider your own efforts.